Beneath the calm surface of the early 20th century, one book would ignite a global nightmare, Mein Kampf, which translates to My Struggle, Hitler's manifesto written in 1924 while he was imprisoned. In its pages, he outlined his twisted beliefs in Aryan supremacy, his hatred of Jews, and his thirst for territorial conquest. Little did the world know, these venomous ideas would soon give rise to the horrors of the Third Reich. By the 1930s, Mein Kampf was more than just a book. It was a tool of terror. Its circulation skyrocketed, and with it came the rise of Nazi power, leading to the Holocaust and the death of millions of people. So how did words written behind bars turn into the brutality of Auschwitz, Ravensbrück, and the purges within Hitler's own ranks? Did anyone see the disaster these ideas were destined to create? As Frederick Douglass once said, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." Let this be a reminder of the power of education in preventing the spread of destructive ideologies. Join us as we uncover the perilous impact of Hitler's banned book and the most horrifying secrets hidden within its pages. The making of a dictator. Adolf Hitler's rise from obscurity to the central figure in one of history's darkest chapters is a journey marked by personal turmoil, ideological transformation, and an insatiable hunger for power. Born on April 20, 1889, in Braunau am Inn, Austria, Hitler's early years were shaped by family discord, particularly his fraught relationship with his authoritarian father, Alois Hitler. A dreamer with artistic aspirations, Hitler's path was obstructed by the practical demands of his father, creating a tension that would later fuel his authoritarian views. After the deaths of his younger brother and father, Hitler sank into a period of isolation. His move to Vienna in 1907, with hopes of becoming an artist, was met with failure as he was rejected twice by the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. It was during these years in Vienna that Hitler's anti-Semitic and nationalistic views began to take root, nurtured by the city's pervasive political unrest. When World War I broke out in 1914, Hitler found a sense of purpose in the Bavarian army, earning medals for bravery. However, the war's aftermath left him bitter and disillusioned, fueling his belief in the stab-in-the-back myth, which blamed Germany's defeat on internal betrayal rather than military failure. This ideology laid the groundwork for his later rise in politics and the eventual formation of the Nazi Party, where his combination of passionate rhetoric and radical nationalism would later push him to power. Mein Kampf and the Weimar Maelstrom. The turbulent environment of post-World War I Germany created the perfect conditions for the radical ideologies that would find expression in Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf. The Treaty of Versailles in 1919, which imposed severe reparations on Germany, left the nation economically shattered and politically unstable. Hyperinflation wiped out the middle class's savings, and political unrest, including both leftist uprisings and right-wing coup attempts, further destabilized the fragile Weimar Republic. In this environment of chaos and humiliation, Hitler found a platform. His charismatic speeches railing against the Treaty of Versailles and the so-called November criminals resonated with a population eager for a return to national pride. The crisis of 1923, marked by hyperinflation, plunged the German people into despair, making them ripe for Hitler's promises of greatness and revenge. It was in this atmosphere of national humiliation that Hitler began to gain traction. His failed 1923 beer hall putsch resulted in imprisonment, but it also gave birth to Mein Kampf, a manifesto that blended autobiography with an aggressive vision for Germany's future. Written during his prison sentence, the book laid out Hitler's extreme anti-Semitic views and his plans for territorial expansion. While initially not a bestseller, its popularity surged as Hitler's political power grew, becoming a key tool in the Nazi Party's rise to dominance. By 1933, when Hitler became chancellor, Mein Kampf had become a symbol of Nazi ideology and a tool for widespread indoctrination. From prison to print, the genesis of Mein Kampf. Adolf Hitler's time in Landsberg prison was paradoxically a period of creative output and political transformation. Convicted for his role in the failed beer hall putsch, Hitler entered the prison on April 1, 1924, and quickly began dictating the Mein Kampf to his loyal follower, Rudolf Hess. Far from the grim, isolating experience one might expect, Hitler received special treatment, including a private room, frequent visitors, and unlimited mail. These privileges allowed him to write the book in relative comfort. The first volume of Mein Kampf was published in 1925, with the second volume following in 1926. Initially, the book didn't make a significant impact, but as Hitler's political career accelerated, so too did the book's popularity. By 1933, with Hitler appointed chancellor, Mein Kampf had sold over 240,000 copies. It soon became essential reading in Nazi Germany, a blueprint for the regime's terrifying ambitions. The book's style, often described as verbose and difficult, combined Hitler's personal history with his plans for Germany's future, including his vision of living space and the elimination of the Jewish population. It was a distillation of Hitler's radical nationalism and vitriolic anti-Semitism, ideas that would fuel the horrors of World War II. As Hitler's power grew, Mein Kampf became more than just a manifesto. It was a tool for indoctrination, helping to shape a generation's thinking and laying the ideological foundation for the genocide and destruction that followed. Dissecting the anti-Semitic labyrinth in Mein Kampf. Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf, written during his imprisonment in the 1920s, is a deeply unsettling manifesto filled with hate-fueled rhetoric. One of its most disturbing elements is its anti-Semitic narrative, where Jews are not only depicted as a religious group, but as a destructive race. Hitler's portrayal of Jews as the source of society's ills, his projection of them as parasites, reveals his deeply ingrained hatred. His anti-Semitism was not a random or isolated view, but part of a broader, dangerous narrative that portrayed Jews as the architects of both capitalism and communism, blaming them for Germany's economic downfall and societal instability. Hitler's narrative served as a scapegoat for widespread frustrations, uniting people under the idea that Jews were a single, monolithic enemy. His belief in the need to exterminate Jews to save Germany later formed the ideological basis for the Holocaust. The book became an influential tool in the Nazi regime's rise to power, revealing the dangers of unchecked hate speech and the horrific consequences when such ideologies are allowed to spread. Aryan ideals in Mein Kampf, the doctrine of racial purity. At the heart of Mein Kampf lies the doctrine of Aryan racial purity, which Adolf Hitler elevated to a twisted ideal. He argued that the Aryan race, typically depicted with blonde hair and blue eyes, was the pinnacle of human evolution, the creators of all higher culture. To Hitler, racial purity was vital for the survival of this master race. He feared that racial mixing would weaken the Aryan stock and lead to its eventual destruction. This belief became the foundation of Nazi racial policy, leading to violent discrimination and ultimately, the Holocaust. Hitler's obsession with Aryan supremacy was informed by pseudo-scientific racial theories of the time, such as those put forth by figures like Houston Stewart Chamberlain. He used these ideas to justify his extreme vision, portraying non-Aryan races, especially Jews, as subhuman. Mein Kampf is not just a personal manifesto, but a blueprint for the horrific policies that would later shape Nazi Germany, resulting in one of the darkest chapters of human history. The book's success in spreading these ideas shows how racial ideologies can lead to devastating consequences when embraced by a society in crisis. Deciphering Lebensraum in Mein Kampf. The concept of Lebensraum, living space, is central to Adolf Hitler's expansionist ideology in Mein Kampf. He argued that the German people, whom he considered racially superior, required more land to sustain their growing population. His territorial ambitions were focused primarily on Eastern Europe, with Russia envisioned as the prime target. Hitler's theory of Lebensraum was rooted in a distorted interpretation of Darwinism, where he saw conquest and colonization as natural steps for a superior race. He criticized Germany's failed colonial pursuits in Africa, advocating instead for a more practical expansion in Eastern Europe. This ideological drive led to the brutal displacement and subjugation of Slavic populations, whom Hitler regarded as inferior. His belief in the necessity of war to secure these territories culminated in the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, a campaign that caused untold suffering and bloodshed. Lebensraum was not merely a geopolitical strategy. It was inseparably linked to Hitler's racial ideology. The brutal consequences of this policy, which included genocide and territorial conquest, highlight the dangerous intersection of racial theory and political ambition, showing how extremist views can manifest in violent, real-world actions. Exploring the obscure depths of Mein Kampf. In Mein Kampf, Adolf Hitler lays bare his vision of a racially pure nationalist state deeply steeped in hatred of Marxism, democracy, and Judaism. One of the book's central themes is Hitler's disdain for Marxism, which he believes undermines aristocratic values and promotes a dead weight of numbers over strength. This animosity led to the brutal political purges of the 1930s and 40s, targeting communists and socialists in Germany. His critique of democracy is equally venomous, with Hitler advocating for a totalitarian regime where the Führer holds absolute power. He argues that parliamentary systems foster lies and chaos, undermining national unity. Mein Kampf also delves into Hitler's use of propaganda, which he sees as essential for mass control. His famous quote, "The broad mass of a nation will more easily fall victim to a big lie than to a small one," foreshadows the Nazi propaganda machine. Further, Hitler glorifies war as a necessary means of national survival, seeing conflict as an inherent part of history. The book also reflects his obsession with personal purity, promoting abstinence from alcohol and tobacco, alongside vegetarianism, which ties into his broader racial ideals. This complex text reveals Hitler's ambitions, racial views, and plans for a totalitarian state, all of which would shape the devastating trajectory of the Nazi regime. The pervasive influence of Mein Kampf in the 1930s. Mein Kampf quickly became a cultural and ideological cornerstone in Nazi Germany after Hitler's rise to power in 1933. By the end of the 1930s, the book had become ubiquitous, symbolizing the widespread acceptance of Nazi ideologies. Its anti-Semitic rhetoric resonated deeply with a population grappling with the aftermath of World War I, the Treaty of Versailles, and the Great Depression. Hitler's anti-Jewish rhetoric, blaming Jews for Germany's economic woes, provided a convenient scapegoat during a period of profound national despair. The book's influence was most evident in education, where Mein Kampf was integrated into the curriculum of German schools, shaping the minds of future generations. The concept of Lebensraum, or living space, discussed in the book, directly influenced Nazi foreign policy and was reflected in the militarization of the Rhineland in 1936, followed by the annexation of Austria and the occupation of Sudetenland. The Nazi regime's domestic policies, such as the construction of the Autobahn and the establishment of the Reich Labor Service, were also influenced by the book's ideology, aiming to reduce unemployment and prepare Germany for war. By 1939, Mein Kampf had become a cultural icon, a mandatory fixture in German households, and a symbol of loyalty to the Nazi regime, cementing its place in shaping German society. Unveiling the propaganda network of Nazi Germany. Propaganda played a pivotal role in Nazi Germany's ability to manipulate public opinion and solidify Adolf Hitler's power. Under Joseph Goebbels' direction, the Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda controlled all media, shaping narratives that glorified the Nazi regime and vilified its enemies. Mein Kampf served as a blueprint for this campaign, providing the ideological foundation for Nazi propaganda. The book's messages of Aryan supremacy and anti-Semitism were woven into the very fabric of German society. From the Hitler Youth to the League of German Girls, young people were indoctrinated with simplified excerpts from Mein Kampf, instilling Nazi principles from an early age. The film industry played a key role in Nazi propaganda, with films like The Triumph of the Will and Olympia subtly embedding the party's ideology into entertainment. Anti-Semitic propaganda, including the infamous exhibitions like The Eternal Jew and films such as Judas and The Eternal Jew, dehumanized Jews, laying the groundwork for the Holocaust. During World War II, despite the deteriorating military situation, Nazi propaganda continued to promote an image of strength, aiming to maintain morale among the German people. The effectiveness of this propaganda stemmed from its ability to exploit pre-existing national sentiments and amplify fears of economic collapse and political instability, making it a powerful tool in sustaining Nazi rule. The global reception and criticism of Mein Kampf. Since its publication, Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf has sparked global controversy. Initially, its reception in Germany was tepid, with just 10,000 copies sold in the first year. However, as Hitler's power grew, so did the book's influence, with over 10 million copies in circulation by 1939. Internationally, the book met criticism for its extreme anti-Semitism and aggressive nationalism. In the United States, intellectuals condemned it as a dangerous insight into Hitler's twisted ideology, while British critics, including Winston Churchill, saw it as a clear indicator of Nazi ambitions. The Soviet Union banned it for its anti-communist content, and in the Middle East, some radical groups found its anti-Semitic message appealing. Post-Wupti Mein Kampf was banned in Germany and other European countries as part of denazification efforts, with the state of Bavaria holding the copyright. However, its use in academic settings remained a contentious issue, with some advocating for its availability for scholarly study. In 2016, a critical edition, annotated by historians, was released to provide context and counteract its hateful ideologies. This edition sparked significant interest, with over 85,000 copies sold in its first year. The advent of the internet has made Mein Kampf more accessible, raising concerns about its potential misuse to promote extremism. While some argue it should be studied to understand Nazi ideology, others caution against legitimizing its hateful messages. As Winston Churchill once said, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it." Mein Kampf remains a chilling reminder of the power of words to shape and distort ideologies. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.